Welcome to the Ground and Pone Podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and everything else. I'm Brian Shea, senior editor at Game Informer, joined by the one and only Scott Fontana, New York Post's MMA reporter. We're coming at you for the very first time on a Tuesday, our new regular release day. That means some fresher thoughts on the most recent fights, starting with breaking down all the latest news from UFC 273, which just happened the other day. We'll have our fair share of game-related conversation as well. But first, Scott, let's kick things off talking about the fights this past weekend.
Let's do it.
Which fight do you want to start off with?
I really think we ought to start with the thing that kind of changed the landscape the most. And for me, that is definitely Aljamain Sterling getting the win over Petr Yan.
Yeah, I think that was a big one for me as well, because I think that was the one that I said I was most excited for out of those three.
I believe so.
Because I was excited for this division to finally get in order. People had long considered Aljo, he was the undisputed champ, but a lot of people considered it illegitimate because of the nature of how he acquired that belt.
And what's funny is it's like we've completely forgotten about the time that was immediately before that, immediately preceded that, which is when people thought of him as probably the most deserving person to have gotten probably even the title fight. And it didn't go his way because it went to Yan and Jose Aldo, but he had gotten the win just a month earlier over Corey Sandhagen, and the two of them were cumulatively ranked higher than Yan and Aldo. So it was kind of like, it was a weird thing that, like, you know how MMA fans are. I mean, if you're an MMA fan, you're listening, you probably know how general MMA fans are.
It's the kind of fan base. It's the kind of fan base that is going to pin all the blame on one guy who was the one who got fouled, not the guy who committed the foul.
There's that too. There's certainly that sect of the fan base out there, and that is kind of not an appealing way to look at the sport, but I guess it's a way to look at the sport. Some people are going to do it, you know?
Like, could you imagine if, like, in a basketball game or in a football game, it's the final play of the Super Bowl or the final play of the NBA Finals, and a player commits a foul, and the player who goes to, like, shoot the free throw is like, everybody's like, what are you doing? How dare you draw a foul?
Paper champ as
LeBron sinks the two free throws to send the Lakers to the championship.
First off, real quick, before we get back to fighting, who is the basketball GOAT? Is it LeBron or is it Michael Jordan?
It's so hard because I grew up in the 90s, so it's almost impossible for me to ever concede anybody over MJ.
Correct. That's the correct
answer.
However,
like, LeBron's skill set is so impressive, but I don't think that I'll ever be able to officially say he's better than Michael.
No, that's fine. That you're a product of the time you grew up in, as I am, as everyone of our age is, and everyone who understands that 6 rings is enough. It's the only argument I need, Sean.
And also, the Last Dance just reignited that back in 2020, right when the pandemic hit. That was like, everybody was watching Tiger King. I was just obsessed with The Last Dance.
I did not watch Tiger King at all.
Nor did I.
And we're completely off topic, of course, but I just had to get that on the record, who we believe is the basketball GOAT. And we are both correct. It is Michael Jordan. It's a generational thing. Deal with it. But yeah, back to Yan and Sterling, and you know, the analogy aside and everything like that. Let's talk about this particular fight, because now we have, I guess it's not a controversy. Okay. There's no controversy about who won, but there is, you're going to have the people in the Petr Yan camp who believe that he definitely won 1-4-5. And then you're going to have the people in the Aljo camp that are going to say he won 1-2-3. I came away from that fight, and I've watched the first round twice now. Actually watched the first 2 rounds twice now. Round 1, I keep seeing it for Aljamain Sterling. I don't know. How did you see it? And I don't want to go crazy on the scoring, but I'm just curious how you saw it.
So I was texting you during this fight. And
yes, you were.
I scored it a draw, which would have sent us back into rematch hell.
Yep. I believe you suggested that to me, and I just said stop.
I was just like, no, I don't want to hear
foul.
It. Aside from another foul, that's the one result that would have left us with no resolution whatsoever.
Yep.
And I'm assuming in that situation, Yan would have kept his interim title and Aljo would have kept his undisputed title.
I guess it's such a weird thing.
Like, there have been so few draws in title fight history, and I don't think any of them have ever had a actual title holder and an interim title holder.
No, we've had vacant belts because there was actually, if you remember all the way back, I wasn't watching the sport then, but I know my history. When BJ Penn fought Cal Uno, and they were supposed to decide who was going to be the lightweight champion, it went to a draw. And no one won the belt. And then they said, well, I guess we just don't need to do this belt for a while. Just so stupid.
So what I did was I gave 1-4-5. And granted, I did not rewatch the fight yet.
Yeah.
1-4-5 to Yan, 2-3 to Sterling, but 2 was a clear 10-8 for me.
I also had round 2 as a 10-8. So we're really what we're talking about just off the bat, though, is that the way we decide the result of this fight is how you score the first round. Like you're saying it's a draw. Okay, fine. But either way, it's still a different result than the one I would get if I scored the other way. Right.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying, what I'm seeing a lot of right now on social media is people saying like, Yan was throwing a lot of stuff, but he wasn't landing as much as Aljo was in that first round. So that's why I want to go back and look before I'm like really like dying on this hill of Yan won round 1. But that's how my gut scored it.
Yan won round 1. Yeah.
In the moment, that was how I scored it.
Understood. And you know what? And that's okay. All you can really go with is kind of your initial reaction. When a judge is sitting there, they all have that too. So like when we go back and do that, like you can't just, I don't want to make this a judging thing. I have another podcast for that. The Couch Side Judges, if you'd like to listen. But the thing with it is like you just kind of have to go with when you watched it, like that's what you saw, especially if you were locked in for 5 minutes. Like if you're looking at your phone, if you're taking a drink, you're staying, any of these things can distract you. Maybe you miss something, especially in a round like that where there's really not a whole lot of things that are landed that like definitively punctuate that round. And not just one strike would win that anyway. So it's a tricky thing. I feel like that round is close enough to just in short that you can see that fight for either man, and based on the way the mixed martial arts criteria is worded, you can give it to either man without being wrong. There's no robbery. There's no judges getting messed up here. So it really just comes down to your perspective and what you weigh. And ultimately you are just supposed to weigh the more impactful strikes overall, but it's like, how do you weigh that? That's for judges to decide. Most of us probably don't really know how to do that the right way, to be honest.
I think it's one of those gray areas.
It is.
It's up to interpretation for the judges.
Sure, absolutely, it is, and that's why it's like, you know what? Sometimes you just have to put your hands up and say, okay, hey, they scored it, because at the end of the day, you can't change it. It's the way it is, and MMA fans are so fickle; they have such short memories, and maybe I'm turning you listeners away. I hope not. Stay, we're fun. But there's such short memories that once this go, like, let's say a year from now, maybe a year and a half from now, it'll take or something like that. People are just going to look at this and be like, well, he lost. Petr Yan lost. They're not going to remember that it was close. They'll just be like, oh, he lost.
Just like they do with Jose Aldo against Marlon Moraes.
Yep. Yeah. Everyone just kind of moves on. It's like
Jose Aldo won that one, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's the statute of limitations, and it's like, well, I guess we just accept it and move on with our lives. I don't care anymore.
That was such a funny thing, though, when they were like, oh, Marlon Moraes beat Jose Aldo in a decision, and Dana White just like, oh, no,
he didn't.
Jose won that. He gets the title fight.
Yep, doesn't matter.
What are we doing?
I know, this is stupid.
But
one
thing I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about something with this fight and like kind of the aftermath of it. I was just thinking a lot about Ray Longo.
Yes.
And he has now coached 3 fighters to an undisputed UFC championship. I mean, he had it before this because...
And all 3 are local guys. Like, he's not like bringing guys in from around the country,
Local guys. Also, all 3 pretty substantial underdogs.
Yes.
You had Matt Serra against GSP, biggest upset ever in UFC history.
Yeah, that's right.
Chris Weidman going against one of the GOATs, Anderson Silva, beat him twice. And now Aljo, who was the undisputed title holder before, but huge underdog coming into this fight.
On the betting odds, yeah, he was a big underdog. And look, I'll preface that by saying everyone who was betting on Petr Yan, you guys were dumb to put it that way, to push it all that way. When you saw the line get into the minus 300 range, you were still betting Petr Yan? Come on. That was not smart. I'm sorry. No wonder you're mad that he lost.
Well, the term that I keep hearing is green colored glasses. And that's how people are looking at this. And they're saying like, oh, well, I bet on so-and-so. And then you're kind of skewing your opinion on like the judging.
100%. That's a lot of what it comes down to.
But Ray Longo, I think it's worth discussing like how like historical his importance is to like that, like the various champions that he's coached. It's just like he has made his mark on this sport, and like I think it's kind of overlooked in a lot of ways.
It's not anymore. I think what you're saying now is starting to very much get into the conversation. I think maybe it's even being spoken about right now and in other areas, but you're listening to us. He really does have just an amazing track record. The fact that, again, it's not just that he's taken 3 guys to the title, he's taken them from the beginning all the way up to the belt, and all 3 of them grew up in the same county, same place. It's there. He's not pulling talent from around the world. They're not flying out to his mega gym or anything like that. It's this gym on like an industrial road, which I happened to go to last month. Got to watch them train. So it's a great facility. I mean, you go in and it's not like, low budget. It looks like a good gym. It's just not, flashy necessarily from the outside. And it's this little hole in the wall place that he builds champions from the ground up. Now they come in with a bunch of skill, of course. Yeah. Ray would be the first to tell you that these guys come in and they're very polished in, one area or another. When I was talking to Ray last month for the story I wrote about Aljamain Sterling, he was saying, he came in, he had the wrestling, he had the jiu-jitsu, it was the striking that he needed work in. He started out being a good kicker. He was giving a lot of praise to the kicks, which we saw being a difference maker in the first round. But yeah, ultimately, like he's and two, Matt Serra now, who obviously was one of his guys, but now is on the coaching side as well, coaching the grappling. The 2 of them, but Ray as well, we're talking about now because he's in the corner, he's giving instructions, he's there on fight night. In this situation, he deserves to be remembered among the greatest of all time, I think. And I would be surprised if ultimately the UFC didn't put someone like him in their like contributor wing, because they don't have like a coaching wing. So I don't know what they would do. But I would have to think, because the UFC is really the only place that has an MMA Hall of Fame right now. I'd love to see an independent one. I'd like to see an independent one, and that, maybe decades from now there will be one. I'd love to be a part of making that happen if I can. But yeah, I hope ultimately he is recognized and in perpetuity and not just in his time.
Man, could you imagine if this is such a what if, but if Al Iaquinta was able to break through against Khabib? Like, just imagine just the pandemonium that would have been like going on in that time.
Oh, that would have been wild. I was in house for that fight too.
I remember that was the anniversary of Matt beating GSP as well.
Yeah, I don't remember that off the top of my head, but yeah, I think you're right. That was a weird fight week, having covered that, it being in the city and everything like that, between Connor coming and throwing the dolly at the bus, which I believe I tried to reenact with my son's Duplo Legos. At some point, I took little like pictures and things. I was like going to make something of it, and then I never did.
So now you have all these pictures of Lego guys with a little like Irishman throwing something at it.
It didn't. I mean, these were Duplo, so there's not a lot of sophistication there. My son was still only 2.5 at this point, so we weren't quite at the regular Lego phase. Maybe I'll put them up one time. We'll see if there's demand from it. I'll do it.
You mentioned the fact that all these champions were homegrown for Ray. Mm-hmm. He might have his first imported champion on the way here, and that is Merab. Like, I think that he has the best chance to break through. I mean, I know that Aljo, one of his absolute best friends, is currently the champ.
I don't think they fight each other either.
I don't think they would either, but defending a belt is tough. Who's to say that Sandhagen doesn't come back and get his revenge, or that Aldo or TJ Dillashaw, and that sets up a storyline for Merab to come back and reclaim it for Sarah Longo. For sure.
But you know what? I want to make sure, too, as much as Ray Longo deserves a lot of credit and praise and time in the sun that he hasn't really gotten, I think we do have to give Aljo his flowers, too, because he went in, he executed it, especially after all the doubts that, look, he leaned in heavily on the doubters and things like that. He's leaning into the heel that has been placed upon him being a heel. And I think he's doing a masterful job of that. He's not, sometimes it's a little cringy. Like, it's kind of hard to, unless you're like an actual like Roddy Piper, Not everybody is meant to do this. But I think he's doing a pretty solid job of at least embracing the hate and breeding it. And it's going to hopefully, for his sake, make him a lot of money in this sport.
It's nice to see that, like, you know, he's being edgy in like his personality, but not in like what he's saying. And like, that's a distinction that I think a lot of MMA fighters fail to recognize, because you can be like a heel without just being an outright horrible person.
Yeah. And he's definitely putting it on. Like he's just playing it up a bit. Like he's not really a jerk or anything like that. It's just people don't like him for whatever reason. I mean, I could probably go into great length of what I think people don't like about him, but I will save those thoughts for maybe another time. But the real thing is, like, right now, at least they just weren't happy about kind of the whole act that they perceived in the way he, you know, maybe sold. And I'm putting a lot of these in quotes here. You know, I don't necessarily believe it, what happened in that first fight. But look, you can't deny that he came out, and realistically, round 2 showed you just how dominant this guy can be. You said you scored it a 10-8. I scored it a 10-8. Judges did not score it a 10-8 because,
which is wild.
That speaks more to a lot of the pushback that's been given from the regulatory side on 10-8s, that they really just want it to be like a total beatdown now, like round 3 of Volkanovski Zombie. That was a unanimous 10-8 actually.
But it's so stupid to, like, because for a while there, weren't we like veering towards like we should give out more 10-8s? And then
they were. The criteria even says that they can do it even in rounds such as that. But Dana White ruined everything. Okay. That's really what it comes down to. Dana actually ruined everything, because last year he complained about the 5th round of Israel Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz, where Blachowicz, he was starting to take control with his takedowns and his grappling late in the fight. He gets 2 out of 3 10-8s in round 5, which, yeah, it was very generous. It probably was too generous in that sense. And I think most judges would probably tell you they wish they didn't, especially because of the fallout. But that round spurred Dana White to be like, no, the judging is out of control. It really should be for like beatdowns and stuff. And look, Dana doesn't have to go to the commission and be like, this is how it's going to be. All he has to do is say it. It's enough. He has that much clout, especially in Nevada, which is where this happened, which is where the fights were happening. So it changed everything. And by the way, that was the exact same night that Petr Yan kneed Aljamain Sterling in the head.
Oh, it was.
Same night. It was right before it.
I did not get that timeline like in my head at all. Like I just assumed that for some reason I was thinking that was further back than
same night.
Blachowicz, Adesanya.
It all comes full circle, and I hope that we can get to the point. I hopefully we can leave the judging conversation here.
So
I do it somewhere else. I want more.
Here's what I really hope.
What do you hope?
I hope that we don't have, and this is going to be a segue, so get yourself ready.
Ooh, I'm going to get on my segue.
I hope that we don't have a situation with Aljamain Sterling like we had for so many years with Alexander Volkanovski, because for the longest time, people thought like, oh, he's not the real champion. Max Holloway's the champion. I hope that people who are so adamant that Petr Yan won that fight aren't going to be like, he's not the real champion. Petr Yan clearly won that fight. And like, no matter what the judges said, no matter what the scorecard said, people refuse to believe that Volkanovski beat Holloway, especially the second time. And I hope that we don't have holdouts like that with Sterling, even though I know we will. But like,
we definitely will.
I just don't want to. We've already done it with Volkanovski. Now I think Volkanovski, after this fight especially, has proven that he is one of the greatest fighters in all of the UFC.
Absolutely,
one of the greatest champions we've seen in a long time. I mean, he's up there with Usman and Adesanya right now as far as active champions and just their sheer dominance. And I think that, I hope that Sterling does not suffer that as much as Volkanovski has, where every time Volk is brought up, but Holloway's the real champ.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, what changed with Volk? Like what has changed for him between now, like the point that he won the fight over Max Holloway the second time, and now he's fought? All you got to do is get out there and fight. And again, short memories, man. Short memories. All you got to do is put it out there, and that they're going to remember the last shiny object you put in front of their face. And this was a very shiny object from Volkanovski against Korean Zombie. Sung Jung really just didn't have much to offer Volkanovski here. And Volkanovski, look, you can't just say, oh, the guy he wasn't up to snuff. It was also that Volkanovski, I don't think we've ever seen him look this good. I have to say, like, this might be the absolute. Can he even top this performance? He could probably still be great and not top this performance. He looked amazing.
It was almost like when like if I was playing through like my EA Sports UFC career and I was like having some kind of difficult fights, and then I was like, you know what, I want to kind of have like a non-stressful title defense, and I switched the difficulty slider to easy or amateur or whatever the UFC difficulty is.
Right.
And that's what this fight looked like, because there was not a single minute where Volkanovski was not in control of this fight. And I love Korean Zombie. Like he's so much fun to watch, but Volkanovski just took it to him in a way that I thought Volkanovski was going to win 50-45. I didn't think there was going to be a single round that TKZ was going to take from him. But even I was surprised by how dominant Volkanovski was.
Absolutely. And I think he was even talking after the fight about, I kind of thought he'd be done after that. I was kind of hoping he wouldn't come back out, and then he felt a little bad, but he had to like make himself not feel bad because he had to like do a job, you know?
I'm seeing that, I didn't see the footage myself, but I'm seeing people say that Volkanovski after the third round looked across at TKZ and said, "Are you sure?"
I hadn't seen that.
And I'm
supposed to talk to him this week so I could ask him.
Yeah, but like that, he's just a good guy. Like Volkanovski seems like a good dude.
I've had good interactions with him. There's a couple times I've spoken to him in the last year or so. So yeah, he seems like a decent dude. I'll get a better read on him this week though, and as long as everything goes as according to plan, and yeah, maybe I'll let you guys a little in on the life of Alexander Volkanovski. I'll give you a little report.
Yeah, you should. Have you ever talked to him about his gaming habits?
No, I have not. That will definitely come up.
There's a subject.
I ask, at this point, I ask every fighter, like, what game do you play? So yeah, it'll happen.
But yeah, back to this fight. Like I was just, like I said, I was shocked by how strong Volkanovski's performance was. I think TKZ was himself, right? It wasn't like he came in like a shell of himself or anything like that. But I think that,
and he didn't make any excuses.
And Holloway are just both on completely different levels than anybody else in this division, and that's why, as adamantly opposed as I was to seeing Volkanovski Holloway 3 before this fight and before Ortega, I think that's the only fight to make at this point. I mean, what else are you going to do? Yair Rodriguez?
You can't justify it, I don't think, other than just to keep him busy because there's, maybe it doesn't line up or something. But
and not every title defense. This is a thing that a lot of UFC and MMA fans, they're like, oh, what is this title fight? Like this person isn't going to stop them. They don't have a chance. Like, why are you throwing this? Like, that's how you know you have a good champion, is you have people going up there that like you're putting them up there basically for the sake of a fresh matchup. And that is something that a lot of people forget that like Anderson Silva did and Demetrius Johnson did. All the great champions have gone up against challengers who like had very long odds, or most people thought, why are they even fighting? Like they don't even stand a chance. And I like that we're getting to that point where people like Kamaru Usman and people like Alexander Volkanovski are going to start lapping the division. Like there's going to be like, all right, who else do we have for them that isn't a rematch?
I think at least there are plenty of fresh challengers available to him at 145 pounds. It's just that we do perceive him to be so far ahead, so that it's like we just don't know. But I think we kind of had that thought about Max Holloway at one point, right before he fought Alexander Volkanovski. So it's look, we think we know everything until we don't. That's that's one of the beautiful things about mixed martial arts, is there's so many variables at play here, and there's so many things that people can bring to the table, and we just don't know. Like Volkanovski, he was a wrecking machine to some degree. At least I was very aware for many years about what he could bring to the table. I'm trying to remember which fight it was, but it was like a fight night. He was on the prelims or something like that. And I remember watching him, and I'm like, this guy is something. Like there's something here. I wish I had more details for you, because I sound like I'm making it up, but no, I saw something in him that seemed kind of different. Like he might have had a higher ceiling, and I mean, he's definitely gone beyond what I really could have expected, of course, but.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, there are other challengers out there for him. There's plenty of challengers at 145.
Sure.
The problem is they need to put together more than one win at a time, because we've seen it with like Cater. He'll fight and then he'll look amazing, and then he'll run into the brick wall that is Max Holloway at the top of the division. And then Yair Rodriguez just needs to get on a consistent fighting schedule. And you have Arnold Allen coming up.
Arnold Allen is interesting. No one's beaten him yet. So if he's able to get to that point, there's at least a challenge where you're like, hey, look, this guy we haven't really seen him in trouble in the UFC. So not real trouble anyway.
Yeah. And I think Arnold Allen's going to be a really interesting matchup if he can get like one or two more wins. And we had Giga Chikadze, who was screaming up the rankings for a while there, and until Calvin Kattar put it on him.
Bryce Mitchell's coming up. No one's beaten him.
Mitchell.
And obviously there is a sect of the fan base that's very much a big fan of his. Josh Emmett too. I mean, he's also got he unfortunately had the knee injury last year, the very devastating one, or a year or two ago. Now at this point, time is flying. Pandemic time is weird, but yeah, I mean, he would be interesting. Mosar Evelev, if he comes up, Ilya Topuria. There are people on the come up. That's a little bit of time passes, and all of a sudden there's a guy there, and you're like, hey, that's the funny thing about
a good champion is they beat all of the established names. And I think that's what this was. Sung Jung is an established name at the 145-pound division, and it's somebody that 10 years from now, you look back on Alexander Volkanovski's resume in the late 2010s, early 2020s, and you're going to be like, oh man, he beat Holloway twice. He beat Aldo. He beat Brian Ortega. He beat Korean Zombie. That's a legacy fight for him, I think. And then also the mark of a good champion is you look at like Anderson Silva, John Jones, they beat all the established names and then they beat the next generation as well. And that's what Volkanovski's going to have to start doing probably in a year or two here.
And yeah, I mean, he did that. Jose Aldo did that. That's why I'll still always look at Jose Aldo as the GOAT at featherweight, because what he did over the course of time that he did it was so impressive. He was the champion for 6 years when you count his WEC reign as well, which realistically, that was the number one belt at the time. So I don't think it's hard to look at that as he was the number one featherweight in the world for a 6-year period up until the point he lost to Conor. Now that fight, it kind of rings me wrong that they never ran that back, because it's a win. It's totally a win. Conor deserves the win. He knocked the guy out, but it proved nothing. It didn't prove anything. It just proved that he caught him in that particular moment, and that's that. That was not a fight. It didn't really play out like a fight. I would have loved to see a tactical battle, because both of these guys, they're tacticians to a degree, and I think it would have been fascinating to see that. Even over, like, if it went 5 minutes, if it went just 5 minutes, I feel like it's like whatever result happens, like, yeah, at least we probably got something out of that.
That's why I am so happy that Chimaev Burns went the way that it did.
Yes.
Because we that's all we've seen from Khamzat Chimaev to this point was him just running through guys, and we never saw him in a war. Like they kept saying over the course of like fight week and the pay-per-view, he had absorbed like one significant strike in his entire UFC career at that point.
Very early in that fight, you heard John Anik mention, this is more significant strikes than he'd absorbed at any other fight in his career or something.
Yeah, because it was like 2. And
yeah, I believe it was. Yeah,
but I'm so glad that we finally got to see the dog come out of him.
And
we saw what happened when he's dragged into those deep waters, especially from somebody who is so skilled like a Gilbert Burns.
We know now that, not saying anybody thought this before, but there was at least, you got to wonder, is he a glass cannon? He's not a glass cannon. I think we know that. Now there's always these questions about, he's, does he have a bad gas tank? It's like, well, you know what? Maybe he didn't for that fight, but also the pace of that fight, the damage that's happening in that fight, it changes you. It's a very different fight. This was just a drag out, amazing fight. I mean, I don't know if this is the fight of the year, Club Plus leader at that point right now. It's got to be pretty close.
It's up there.
Giga Chikadze and Calvin Kattar was fantastic too earlier in it was like the first fight of the year, first main event of the year anyway. This one, it has more public interest. It has more stakes to it. I think that does at least add something to the mix when you're talking about a fight of the year kind of thing. It can be a difference maker. It doesn't be all end all, but yeah, it was a fantastic fight. It had to have outpaced anything anyone expected, because there were so many people that were just like, oh, he's going to run through Gilbert Burns. I mean, that's not what happened. I think he thought he could, and he gave it a try. And then when it didn't happen, you got to see Chimaev really push through and show, okay, I can adjust. I just because it didn't work doesn't mean I can't do it. Whatever doubts he may have had, he pushed through them.
And that gave me more confidence in him as a contender, because
absolutely. It does.
You see how he handles adversity. You didn't see that before. Like, I think Gerald Meerschaert's amazing, and like you've seen what he's done in the time since facing Khamzat Chimaev. He's been on a run now, but when he just punches Gerald Meerschaert once and knocks him out, like, you don't know what that could do. Because like, that's like the thing that people always give like the underdog in a big fight. Oh, he has a puncher's chance. That's basically what Khamzat did to Gerald Meerschaert. Obviously, he did it with great intention, and he ran through like multiple guys. But at the same time, like we had no idea, like, all right, is this just a guy with a big punch and like good wrestling, or what is it? And we saw that he has that heart, he has that dog in him, and he knows how to handle adversity. He knows how to get through it, especially against a guy like Burns, who, by the way, my official pick, Burns' second round finish. And
round 2 was his best round. I mean, there were several times he had Chimaev in a bad way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And especially that one hook that he landed where it basically turned Chimaev's head backwards.
Yes. Yeah, they love to show that one on the replay. I remember. I can't wait to watch this fight a second time. I actually didn't get the chance to watch it a second time since then. You know, a fight like this, you watch it again, the emotions out of it. So it's always different watching a fight over again. But I still want to watch it again because I really want to experience with less of like, oh my God, the drama here. Like, and I can just kind of like focus on technique and what's good here. But that's another thing though, because we now have 15 full minutes of Khamzat Chimaev on there, coaches can start dissecting that now. Mm-hmm. So the next guy that fights Chimaev, it's going to be one of those top fighters. It's probably going to be Colby Covington, if you believe what Dana White is saying.
That's what I wanted to ask.
You never know. Now him and his team, they can watch that fight and they can say, okay, this is what he does. This is what he, you know, maybe his tactic gets sloppier here. Maybe, you know, they're going to dissect it in ways that are above my pay grade for sure.
Here's what I want to ask you. 3 options for Chimaev's next opponent. You have the one you just mentioned, Colby Covington. Mm-hmm. You have the one that everybody thought he was going to get if he just ran through Burns, Kamaru Usman. Mm-hmm. And you have a third option, which I think would be pretty interesting as well. And that is the winner of this weekend's UFC Vegas card, Vicente Luque versus Belal Muhammad. I think that any of those 3 options would be interesting. I think Kamaru would actually be my least preferred option.
Is the caveat here that we're saying that Leon Edwards gets his fight out of the way? Like
yeah,
that fight
I absolutely
happens.
Don't want him to leapfrog.
And then we're
Leon
also
Edwards.
assuming that Leon Edwards loses in this scenario. Because
yeah, I guess we could say the winner of Usman Edwards. But I was just thinking, like, because everybody's just thinking, like, all right, he's going to fight Kamaru.
Let's say, for argument's sake, it is Kamaru, because if Leon Edwards wins that fight, it gets more complicated.
And also, Kamaru's totally going to get a rematch.
Yeah, exactly. So
let's the series is 1-1.
Let's say it's Usman. Exactly. Let's say it's Usman. I don't like that fight either necessarily next for him. I think actually the one that I think should be the next challenger at this point, especially if it is Luque, should be the winner of Luque and Belal Muhammad, because Luque has done enough. He's gotten there. There is some interest on Kamaru Usman's side too, because he has a lot of respect training many years with Vicente Luque. He knows what he can bring to the table. It's a finisher. I think if he goes out there and he looks really impressive against Belal Muhammad in a fight night main event too, I think that's going to make him be a very attractive challenger. But I mean, who knows? I mean, obviously there's the Conor McGregor stuff, and really whenever Conor wants something, if they can make it happen, they're going to do it.
I really hope that's not the case, because
I hope so too.
So we have Leon Edwards already lined up, and fingers crossed that fight actually happens. And then right on deck, we're talking about 2 challengers ready to go in Chimaev, who, you know, he's basically 1 win away from a title fight. If he beats whoever his next opponent is, he's going to get in the title fight just because of his sheer popularity. Mm-hmm. And then
he is easily the most popular. Like all the Google metrics and everything, he was way ahead of every other fighter on this card. I was stunned how far ahead he was on the Google search.
And I think either Luque or Muhammad, I think either one of them, Luque especially, but Muhammad as well, if either of them have a really strong showing this Saturday, I think that they are also right on deck for a title fight. Like maybe Muhammad would be 1 more fight off.
Muhammad makes it a little less, yeah. And that's not a slight on him. It's just it's the outlook, you know. I like Belal Muhammad. I have no problem with him, but I just don't think that's the UFC's view.
Yeah. I think that if you throw Conor into that mix, though, that's going to create such a logjam, just like every other division he's ever been in.
That's his nickname, by the way, the logjam.
Conor, the logjam.
I mean, it should be. It's obviously the notorious Conor McGregor, and he earned that one. He's very notorious.
He continues to earn that one.
Continues to earn that one. Not driving around, not just without a license, no registration, nothing. Impressive and not surprising in the very least. I hate to make this about Conor, but yeah.
But I would love to see Luque fight more top guys. I think Luque is a straight killer.
Luque's fought enough top guys. I want him to get the top guy if he wins. That's why. So to kind of go back to the original question, I think I'd rather have Chimaev beat. Well, I wouldn't mind him beating Colby Covington.
Here's my downside to that fight. And we saw how, going back to Conor, how Conor and Khabib went with the trash talk. I worry so much about the route Colby Covington would take with that trash talk.
You mean you're not worried right now about bleep shot Chimaev?
That's the least of my concerns with the route that Colby would take with that.
God.
I just fear for like how dark or how just much of a dark stain on the sport that trash talk would be in the pre-fight.
Look, there is something about Khamzat Chimaev that is not being spoken about a whole lot right now, and that's true. His very direct connection with the Chechen dictator Ramzan Kadyrov. So I wouldn't be surprised if Colby at least brought that into the light.
And we saw Conor do the same thing with Ali.
And you know what? There's at least some merit to that, and I wouldn't necessarily be mad at Colby for touching upon a subject that even most MMA media that gets a hold of Khamzat, they just don't really touch.
By the way, the story by Kareem Zidane about that subject, I think on Bloody Elbow, was a very, very good read. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend anything that Kareem Zidane produces. He is a terrific journalist. We don't have a lot of like journalists in MMA. Am I a journalist? I don't know. That's you decide. You are. Know? It's everybody. Like I'm more of a critic as well in terms of like what I produce on, but like it's all journalism. It's just different. Sure. You're not wrong. That obviously gets us into a different conversation. Just investigative is what you're talking about. Yeah. I mean, he not just investigative, but like he's really trying to like report things that people should know, as opposed to things that people want to read. It's a very different conversation. It's like, I don't want to go down that road too deep because we want to talk about fights and games, but we mentioned it's an interesting kind of dichotomy there. We mentioned Ali Abdelaziz and think what you want about him, but there's some news surrounding him, and that was a tweet that he sent out from his own account this time. Yeah. And big surprise. Not just one of his fighters' accounts. Yeah. It was Henry Cejudo is planning to re-enter the USADA pool. Yes. Is this one of those like those Thanos at the end of Age of Ultron? I'll do this myself. Where he puts the gauntlet on and goes, fine, I'll do it myself. Right. Zombie, who he trained for this camp, didn't capture the featherweight title. Is he trying to get that Volkanovski fight? I know he was before. And then Dana was like, no, you got to come back and win one. So is that the path that Cejudo's going to take, or is he thinking he's going to challenge Sterling? I don't know. I think he's probably like Dana's saying, like, you can't just walk in and get a belt at another division. We're not going to let you do that. I think Henry Cejudo thought that he didn't have enough leverage to do a lot of the things like get more money, get a better deal, get, these big fights whenever he felt like it. That's just my read on it. I don't know, but that's how it looked. And it didn't really work out. I credit, all credit is due to try and gamble. I mean, shoot your shot, right? But it didn't really work out. So yeah, I imagine he's just hungry. Like he's training all these fighters now, and it seems like he's doing a pretty solid job with them. The record in championship fights now is mixed. Figueiredo won, Zhang lost, and right here we also had Zombie lose. Although, granted, I think there's actually, and that's a whole nother conversation. I think there's an argument to be made that Zhang beat Rose Namajunas in their second fight. It was very close. It's a very close fight. It's one of those. The result is what it is, but it's a close fight. So I think she put her best foot forward. I think it's just like Yan Sterling. They were so close that if you scored it either way, you're not out of your mind, and neither way is a robbery. Absolutely, but I think the training with these top fighters probably is making the itch get a lot harder to scratch, and he's probably like, I got to get back to competition. I miss competition. So yeah, I mean, UFC did kind of just like give him a happy trails when he announced his retirement. They were like, Conor says care. Like, I'm retiring, and they're like, they get to the negotiation table immediately. John Jones, same thing. Henry Cejudo, he's like, I think I'm gonna walk away, guys, after beating Dominic Cruz, and they're like, all right, well, it was nice having you, man. They really didn't care. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's only a few people who I think the UFC believe moved the needle, to quote Dana there. I think it's probably Nate Diaz is one of them. It's Nate Diaz. It's probably Nick Diaz, even still. It's been a long time since he looked like Nick Diaz that we know, but either way, I think that still counts. John Jones, Conor, Ronda. We'll put Ronda in there.
That might be the list. That might be the probably Khabib too. I think. Well,
absolutely.
Remember, he tried to get Khabib to
all
retire
those dinners
for 6 months. He's like, no, he's not retired. It's like the guy said he's retired, man. He doesn't seem like he wants to come back. And
I don't think one person I think is going to
back.
stick to their guns and like respect the values of like his family. It's probably Khabib Nurmagomedov.
He's built differently in a billion ways, and I think. I think, yeah, I don't think we're going to see him
I would say
again.
Masvidal and Adesanya were on that list. Adesanya probably still is on that list.
Who knows at this point now? He's so much of him has changed in the last few years, especially with his latest news. But yeah, to get back to Cejudo, I do think probably absence probably makes the heart grow a little fonder for someone like him. He comes back, he goes in there, and let's say he wins. I think he can probably walk in and get a bantamweight title shot. I don't think that's out of the question. It's still going to take him 6 months.
I don't think he's dropping down to flyweight again, but
he won't go down there again. That was always
did, I think he could walk into that.
He could, but also is he going to go walk in and fight Figueiredo, who's been training for a few months? I think that's true. That'd be really first off, that'd be super scummy. And if it was Moreno,
I think that he would.
I don't think he'd do it. If it was Moreno, yeah, I think he probably would. But I don't think if it's Figueiredo, I think he'd be like, you know what? I don't want to cut down to that weight anyway. That's fine. We can just rule the world together. I think they would see it that way. And maybe they've already had that conversation. I don't know. But yeah, he can walk in there and say, I want a bantamweight title shot. And UFC would be like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure. It's still going to take him 6 months. So bare minimum, the guy can't come back until October. They're going to want probably a second fight in there. I imagine Sterling against TJ. I think they're going to probably get out of the way. And then you bring in Cejudo. And obviously there's a built-in story there anyway. So I think they win-win no matter what with they get Cejudo back there and put him in the bantamweight shot. If he wins that fight, yeah, maybe you say he moves up and gets like a featherweight or featherweight super fight. Who knows?
I think that
to be quadruple C,
quadruple
C, or as Ben Folks actually pointed out, is the triple CCC on the shirt, which he absolutely hates.
See that,
which makes it 9 C's.
That's also because I tried to respond to that tweet of Ben Folks, and I was going to put triple CCC, and then I was going to put like to the third power.
Okay, and
it turns out you can't do to the third. You can't do exponents on Twitter.
Oh, that's too bad. Math nerds probably hate that.
Probably. Either that or I didn't know how to do exponents on Twitter, which is probably the more likely scenario.
It could be.
But we've talked a lot about UFC. Before we move on from MMA in general, Bellator has some big fights coming up.
Yes, absolutely they do. And obviously it's kind of a dual weekend here. Like you got UFC on Saturday with Luque and Muhammad. But yeah, Bellator I think is actually the more compelling top of the card, and that's no slight to Luque and Muhammad. I think it's the fact that Bellator 277 on Friday night. AJ McKee against Patricio Pitbull, number 2. Look, I think it's compelling in the sense that you can watch kind of a continuation of the changing of the guard, and in terms of some of the best featherweights in the world here. Pitbull's, look, he may even still win this fight, but there's no denying that he's on the back 9 of his career. He's just been fighting long enough. But McKee, he really could be the future of the featherweight or lightweight division, depending on. I think he's going to eventually size himself out. I do. I don't think he's there yet, but I think he will. That's the problem, though.
Fight. He had such a star-making performance in his first fight against Pitbull, and then he just got put on ice. Like, we didn't see him for so long. It's almost like a distant memory at this point. And I think that was a huge misstep by Bellator.
I think there was negotiations over the contract is the part of the problem. They were hoping to get a new contract worked out. And my read on the situation, having spoken to AJ McKee actually the other day too, I think that he kind of said there was a little bit of like, yeah, he was hoping to fight a little sooner. I think he wanted it in this fight, or they were saying it would be in this month or whatever. And then it kind of kept getting delayed. And obviously now we're in April and here's finally happening. He's owed 3 fights now because of the champions clause. After having won the belt, his contract was going to run out if he lost the fight, but he ended up winning, so it got extended 3 fights. So I imagine he kind of wants to get those fights in as soon as possible, based on my conversations with him. And yeah, here's one. He's going to knock that down. I think he probably would be interested in going up and getting that lightweight belt as well from Patricio's brother, Patricky Pitbull.
Patricky, yeah.
Pitbull, by the way, is a family name.
Oh, is it?
Just like Fontana, just like Shea, Pitbull.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a cool family name to have. I'm going to change my name to that. Brian Pitbull.
Fight fans, of course, know that is his nickname that the both of them go by. Their last name is Freire.
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 I never knew how to pronounce it the correct way.
I believe
I'm terrible
so.
with Brazilian pronunciations.
I believe it's Freire. I don't.
Freire.
I've heard it pronounced that way. Maybe I'm wrong too. I don't know. I'm not a Portuguese speaker. So,
but I'm actually extremely interested in the other big fight on Bellator's docket, and that is Vadim Nemkov versus Corey Anderson.
Finally wrapping up the light heavyweight Grand Prix that started a year ago. A buddy of mine, my guy who I do my other podcast with, Dan Urban, he does not like the fact that this Grand Prix has dragged on for it's just about a full calendar year. Do you think that's too long? Do you think 1 year is good, or do you think it should be wrapped up within not one calendar year? It was one 12-month period. Do you think it should be wrapped up in one calendar year?
I would love to see it on an accelerated pace, just so we can get it over with, like a 9-month period. But of course, MMA is so unpredictable in terms of like training camps and injuries. Like everybody's always injured all the time, especially in the age of COVID, where like all it takes is one exposure and you have to shut it down for a little bit, or
you don't even have a choice. Yeah.
Like it's not like something you can fight through really, unless you just keep it a secret, and that's probably not a good idea either. But I think that in a perfect world, I would love to see these tournaments wrapped up within a 9-month period. But I don't know we definitely don't live in a perfect world. And that's the trick with any tournament. I mean, just look at the light heavyweight Grand Prix as a whole. We lost so many big names, Yoel Romero, Rumble Johnson. We lost all these big names that were the main attractions really of this tournament. And we didn't even see Yoel fight once, and we saw Rumble fought once, right? And then he was out at the semifinals.
It is not a mixed martial arts Grand Prix, and I said this on social media recently too. It's not a mixed martial arts Grand Prix unless we've lost some of the best fighters in the tournament.
Well, we didn't lose the featherweight, right? Didn't featherweight go off without a hitch?
Is that possible? Oh my goodness. I don't remember. It's been a while.
The desired outcome from the start of that. The desired outcome from the start of that was McKee Pitbull, and that's what we got.
Well, let's put it this way. It still didn't go off as planned. Things didn't necessarily go exactly as planned because it took almost 2 years to finish.
Yeah.
There's at least that. So no matter what, you can't just make these things happen the way you want. It's, Strikeforce heavyweight Grand Prix loses people. I forget if the heavyweight.
But hey, we lost a bunch of people, but we gained a Daniel Cormier.
Yes, we did. That was his star turn. Very impressive. But yeah, I'm interested in this fight because I do want to see who is potentially the best light heavyweight in the world outside the UFC, which I think can make an argument for being the best light heavyweight in the whole world because it's post John Jones. There's at least some kind of doubts there. Nemkov has some very impressive wins over impressive fighters. Corey Anderson has split his fights with Jan Blachowicz, who of course lost to Glover Teixeira. There's at least some kind of doubt necessarily about who definitively is the best fighter in the world. So you can kind of look at these guys and be like, hey, why isn't the winner of this fight the best 205er in the world? It's not just because of the banner they fight under. That has nothing to do with it. But I will say this. I don't know if this is going to be the most exciting fight. I think it could end in an exciting way. And I also see very realistic ways that either man could be the winner of this fight. And it could be maybe not the most fun 25 minutes that we've ever had.
I could see that.
I could see it. It's just the realistic
unless
situation.
We get Corey Anderson that fought Johnny Walker.
Oh, dude! I mean, even the one in Bellator, he's been a wrecker in Bellator. So I'm not looking at him as just a wrestler grinder kind of thing anymore. Beast in 25-8, the era where he was just kind of taking people down.
Nickname
and kind of riding it. It's like the best nickname ever.
It's in the so bad it's so good realm.
It totally is. You're absolutely right.
Overtime is a much easier one to say, and
it's lame though. It's boring.
25-8.
I actually because he switched to overtime. I'm almost because I didn't like Beast in 25-8 before. I thought it was goofy. Now I'm like, can you go back to it? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have felt that way. Please
you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. But to all of us who remember, he's still Beast in 25-8.
Forever in our hearts.
And on a weird time scale too.
Yeah, he's existing outside of normal time.
He does. And that's probably the edge in this fight for him. I don't know. I mean, I hope that this ends up being kind of the more exciting range where maybe one of them gets a finish in the first 2 rounds. I'm just bracing any listeners who might tune in, and I don't want to give you false expectations. This could totally go the other way. And I can see it very easily happening that way because light heavyweight can happen that way. It just does. So I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I'm very interested to watch this event more than the entirety of the UFC event the following day. I like the main event, but I think there's at least there's 2 top fights on this one as opposed to just kind of one on the other.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the UFC card here.
Phone, of course.
I want to look. I just want to see if there's anything that we need to give extra shine to. And
well, I can tell you in Bellator, Aaron Pico is back in the cage. You know, the one-time future of MMA, who I think probably was too overhyped, and now people are like totally written off. And I think the truth was always somewhere in the middle. I'm interested in him as a prospect now, and I like that he's paid his dues. So I'm interested to see how his progression goes. He's fighting a late replacement. It's Adley Edwards. It's not necessarily the most interesting thing here. I think we're going to get probably a classic Bellator squash match.
I'm looking at the UFC Vegas 51 card according to MMA Mania because that was the first one that came up on the Google. And Vicente Luque versus Bilal Muhammad is definitely the best fight on this card, the most interesting fight. But there's a couple names that I'm excited to see. Miguel Baeza coming back is always fun. William Knight, I'm glad he's making the jump up to 205.
I mean, 265.
Is he doing 265?
I believe this is a heavyweight fight. Yeah, I'm looking at it on Tapology.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he is doing 265.
You know what? He really ought to be there. He's
a massive,
a big man,
human being.
Let me just give you one fight that I actually am very interested in, and it's on the prelims. Huggy Bear, Chris Barnett.
Oh, right. I forgot Chris Barnett. Yes.
After the what was the spinning wheel kick knockout over John Vellante, sending him into retirement.
And then front flip.
Yeah. Oh my God. He's a point of being because he's so fun. Like,
screw it. Put him in the main event.
Put him in the main event. Yeah. Over this amazing welterweight fight. I like it.
Yeah. Over one of the most anticipated welterweight non-title fights.
He has to walk to the cage wearing the Huggy Bear suit.
No, he has to walk to the cage the same way he did in his last fight against Vellante.
Why can't we do both?
Just the full dance as hard as you can.
The Harlem Shake?
Yes.
Was it the Harlem Shake? I'm pretty sure it was the Harlem Shake. I'm sitting cage side for that one, right? That was in New York. And I didn't have like a great angle at like the monitor for at that point. I think I was also writing actually because John Vellante was the local guy. I was kind of prepping for something we needed text wise for work. Sometimes I'm there to work, I'm not just there to watch and have fun. But I kind of missed some of that. But I know I thought I was told it was the Harlem Shake, so I wasn't sure if you knew.
No, I have no clue. If you ask me what a dance is and it's not like the Macarena, I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't say. I think you could probably get the floss, because of Fortnite, right?
Yeah, I mean that's also easy because like it's just flossing.
Can you do it?
No,
I can't.
Why would
I've tried. Well, because we're old, I guess.
Why would I be able to?
We're like older to middle millennials. So yeah.
What about?
It's just not for us.
What about the guy that you were looking at? The listeners can't see me, but what about the guy, the 35-year-old guy that you were looking at across your screen made you think this guy might be able to floss? Because I'm looking at myself right now and there's not much that indicates that I'd be able to do that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's early in the morning, sir.
It is. All right. We've talked a lot about fighting. Let's get to the other half of this show, which is gaming.
Yeah.
Did you see the news? And this is also movies, but Sonic the Hedgehog 2 scored the biggest opening weekend of any video game movie ever.
I did, and that's encouraging. I just like that it's going to fuel Hollywood's shiny object obsession and try to make more video game movies. A lot of them are going to stink, but they're going to try. And I like that because I think we're going to get some spaghetti sticking to the wall in the process.
I sure hope so. I mean, it took them long enough for superhero movies, and now look at the pretty consistent quality we get for at least Marvel movies. Like they are pretty consistently good, if not great.
We were talking the other day or a couple episodes back about kind of the year 2000 was the demarcation point for when superhero movies started to get really good, right? I cited X-Men. A couple years before that, though, I think I need to give credit where it was due. And I watched this movie the other day and it kind of hit me. I was like, man, what year was this? It's like, absolutely. Blade. 2 years earlier. that I think was probably the best execution of a superhero movie to that point. Now, obviously, Blade is kind of a different superhero in the sense that it crosses over into that horror, monster kind of genre that I think when it came out, people thought of it more like that than a comic book movie. But I think we can reevaluate it as an early comic book movie, absolute success.
Especially since he's getting introduced into the MCU before too long. I mean, he already technically has been. If there's a spoiler in there somewhere from a movie that came out last year.
Mm-hmm.
But Mahershala Ali has been confirmed to play Blade, and that is exciting because Mahershala Ali is an amazing actor,
and it's his second MCU character, which makes it a little weird.
Kind of, because
I know they're always so weird about
they haven't.
Netflix
I mean,
shows.
If you look at Disney Plus, it's not under the Defenders movies that or the Defenders TV shows that they just brought over to Disney Plus from Netflix are not listed under MCU canon. They're listed under the Defenders saga.
Oh God!
But then
I love how they do that. They're like, well, you know what? We made you think that this was part of it before, but eventually we reclassified it. So you were watching.
It's one of those things that's going to be considered loose canon.
A loose canon.
I think that's going to be the way it works because, I think it's going to be something that, if you want to watch this, cool. But if not, no worries.
I feel like that's what they're just going to do anytime things just don't line up the way that they wanted to. You're going to watch something thinking it was part of MCU canon, and then we'll be like, sorry, no, not this time.
Well, they tried an Inhumans show, and it failed miserably. And then they were like,
I didn't watch it.
That doesn't exist. They don't even pretend to acknowledge it. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the same way, where they started out all this stuff, and then they introduced Ghost Rider. They had a bunch of other characters, like Quake was in there, a bunch of named Marvel characters made appearances in that show. And now they're that doesn't really exist anymore in MCU canon.
Yeah, that actually, I'm starting to have a reckoning with a lot of the MCU stuff. It's just, they do things like that. They pull you in, they make you think you're watching all these things. You really want to stay up to snuff with everything in MCU. My wife and I, we watched the entirety of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I stuck it out a lot longer than I was kind of interested in because she still was. And it was just ultimately they're none of this actually really counts. I was what the heck, man?
So, to be
you
fair,
sold it a different way.
Yes, that was in the early stages of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also the Netflix thing was disappointing when they kind of made it clear that this was not canon, especially once they started doing their own TV shows. They were like, oh yeah, those definitely
don't count.
But I think nowadays you can trust if anything comes out from Marvel and they label it as an MCU thing, they are going to put their entire promotional power behind it. Before, it was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of the stepchild of the MCU, or it was we acknowledge it, but it's not something we're ever going to reference in a major thing. You're never going to go to see Infinity War and it's going to be oh my God, remember that one episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? That was never going to happen. But it was something that kind of built the universe around it. And now they've done a thing where WandaVision is going to play a major role in the upcoming movies. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the next major MCU movie release, is going to heavily reference WandaVision. The future of the MCU hinges on the last couple of episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the last couple episodes of Loki. And Moon Knight is amazing so far. So
we've not gotten up to Moon Knight. That one we're still behind on. Everything else I'm caught up. Not that we do.
Hawkeye did a lot of stuff too that I think is going to be referenced in the future. I think we're going to get a Young Avengers subplot out of that. I think we're going to get a city level story, which was a thing that a lot of people liked about the Defenders movies or the Defenders TV shows. I keep calling them movies, but I think if you ever did you watch Hawkeye?
Yeah, I did. My wife and I watched it.
It was reminiscent of those Netflix shows just because it was a city level story. Even though it involved one of the original Avengers, it told a grounded story, and it involved some characters that people have been wanting to see in the MCU. And I think that that's something that makes me excited about these shows because you're getting different flavors. You had the supernatural stuff with WandaVision. You had the cosmic time traveling stuff, different timelines with Loki. You had a global superhero story that almost felt like it was in line with an Iron Man movie with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And then you had a city level story with Hawkeye. And that's the type of, and same thing with Moon Knight. Moon Knight's kind of a mix of city level, supernatural, and global. And I think that they're doing with the TV shows what Marvel has done with the MCU movies, and that's you're telling these comic book stories, you're telling these superhero stories, but they're all almost different genres, different stakes, and that's something that was great because you could watch like Iron Man and see like this technology driven superhero, and then you could watch Captain America Winter Soldier and it's like this global espionage movie, and then you go over and you see Thor and he's like fighting dark elves, and it's like, what, like this is all in like the same canon.
I will say this, and you sound like you are all in on everything MCU, right? Is that fair to say? So yeah. I have been. I've not been. I'm more DC than Marvel. Like when it really comes down to it, Batman is far and away everything for me. Just to kind of give everybody an idea of where I'm coming from. So the MCU, I was all about it. I'm still interested in seeing every single movie, and I try to keep up with all the TV shows and everything like that. But man, I've talked to a lot of people now over the years who are just like, and I'm kind of coming around to this myself. It's like, there's just a lot. It's kind of a chore to keep up with in a lot of ways. And that was how I'd especially felt about things like, again, we've addressed these already, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and some of the other Defenders TV series that was like, was I really enjoying watching Iron Fist? No, but I kind of felt like I had to keep up with at least that saga.
I think season 2 of Iron Fist was better than a lot of people gave it credit for, just because we see it every time like a Madden game or an Assassin's Creed game comes out and it's a really bad, poorly reviewed game or has a lot of glitches. That game sells well. It's the following game that pays for the sins of its father. Like Assassin's Creed Unity came out and people were like, oh my God, this game is a mess. But people bought it because they didn't know. And then they played that and they're like, this game is such a mess at launch. By all accounts, by the way, that game has been fixed in a lot of ways and it's actually a really good game now. But then Assassin's Creed Syndicate comes out and it's like, well, this game's amazing, but we're not going to buy it because we were burned last time. Or like say Madden 22 comes out and it's just a disaster. Madden 23 is not going to sell nearly as well because people feel like they were burned by the last one. And I think that's what happens with a lot of these movies.
Yeah, but I mean, there's just so much. Like you're asking people sometimes to watch 3-4 movies in a year. And like sometimes I watch a lot of movies. I really do. I still don't watch as much as I like would prefer to. And I used to, it's harder now with a wife and kids and job and all that stuff. Of course, podcasts, when I'm doing all this stuff, but for regular people, like sometimes they only get to the movies 5-6 times a year. A lot of them don't necessarily just want to only watch Marvel movies. Like, are you signing up to only watch Marvel? I don't know. There's a ton of people who it's going to make happy. I know that. And that's fine. And that's totally fine if that's your thing. But I am starting to feel a little fatigue from it, even myself. And it's just the thing.
Like I was feeling some fatigue following Endgame. And I was like, all right, well, I'm excited for a Spider-Man movie, which was the next movie after Endgame. And I'm always going to be excited for Spider-Man.
Afterward. It was like, hey, don't forget we got candy after dinner.
And then like there was a long break because of the pandemic. We didn't get any Marvel stuff for a while. And then they finally fine, put Black Widow out on Disney Plus. You can pay like $30.
And they had the shows too.
And
they kind of wet your appetite a bit.
I wasn't a big fan of Black Widow. I didn't think I think mostly I was soured on their treatment of Taskmaster, who is a really great villain, but they did Taskmaster kind of dirty in this one. So I wasn't a fan of that representation of that character. And then also
it was kind of Deadpool-ish in X-Men Origins.
What
the way they did Taskmaster.
Yeah, it was kind of like where they just took a character and completely changed them to the point.
That's kind of what I'm saying,
Yeah. For some reason, I thought you were saying Taskmaster was in X-Men Origins, and I was like, wait a second.
No.
Did I miss this?
No, but I mean, everyone knows the terrible way that they did the Deadpool character in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and it felt a lot like that for Taskmaster in Black Widow. They feel analogous to me. Yeah, they went from having Taskmaster be like this loudmouth guy to like a silent antagonist, and it was like, and we don't want to spoil, of course, but there's other things that we won't spoil. But the key thing for me was not the turn at the end that they did. It was more the fact that this character was just not acting like that character, even when the spoiler stuff didn't happen. Even though I think we're past the statute of limitations for any kind of spoilers. It's been 2.5 years? I don't
2
know. I
years.
feel I like to give it longer. I'm very conservative in my ways of treating spoilers. So I think whatever we do, we got to give a spoiler warning, or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I think
spare
that
it
what
for
we're going to
today.
do for the Halo series, when we get to the end of that,
That's right. We're
is
going to stick it at the
we're
end.
going to spoil it at the end of an episode.
I'm behind an episode, by the way, so we cannot discuss the latest episode. But I will make sure that I watch double duty for the next time.
Here's the thing, though, about the whole thing that kicked off this conversation: Sonic 2 doing really well at the box office. You said that you showed your kid Sonic 1 last episode, and we were running short on time, so we didn't get into what you thought of the movie. We got into what your kid thought of the movie, because he went and drew a picture of Sonic, right?
Yeah, they both did.
What did you think of Sonic 1?
So I liked it. I mean, I saw it in theaters, like a lot of us. We've talked about this before. That was the last movie I saw before the pandemic hit. Just
That's
like
right,
you
we did talk about that.
But no, I mean, I liked it. I thought it was really good. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw it. When I watched it the second time with my children this time, first off, I was able to experience the joy of it through them a lot more. And they don't even have super strong ties to the Sonic character. I've played a little Sonic 1, a little Sonic 2 in front of them, so they've seen it. I've even played a little bit with my son. He let him play as Tails, which letting any little child play with Tails, like, they don't need to know what they're doing. As long as they're involved, and it doesn't affect the game negatively. It's like a great kind of get your kid into gaming experience playing.
And that was one of the reasons they did that, because I mean, it was the exact situation that I was in the 90s, where my brother was 7.5, or he is 7.5 years younger than me. Mm-hmm.
He's still,
I was what, 10, 11 years old, and he was still a little kid. And I was like, here, you can play with me. You can play as Tails. And it wasn't one of those situations where I had to unplug the controller and like trick him into thinking he was playing. He could actually play as Tails.
He's actually,
and there's no bearings whatsoever. And like, that was the reason they did that. Like, I was interviewing the Sonic team about like the introduction of Tails, and they were like, yeah, like, we wanted it to be like, you could have like a little sibling play alongside with you, and there's no consequences. And it was like kind of like training them to play video games.
Yeah, it really was. But yeah, I mean, the movie itself, like experiencing the joy with alongside them with it definitely made the second viewing just as good, I would say. Yeah, I think it's a solid movie. I think it holds up. I really do. So I'm very interested to see. You obviously enjoyed it quite a bit, the second one. Mm-hmm. So I don't know when we're going to get the kids there. Maybe, they've got spring break coming up next week. So hopefully that week will make a lot of sense. Recording the show will be a lot of fun when my kids are running around upstairs that day. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Maybe you'll hear a lot of elephant stomping on the recording. We'll see how that goes.
Extra flavor.
That's all right. Brian, what are you playing right now? Actually, that's what I want to know.
So I have 4 games actually that I checked out over the weekend. I didn't have, like, I had some morning plans and I had some evening plans over the weekend, but my middle of the days were completely open. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take some time, play some video games, something I haven't done in a long time, where I just sat down and devoted an entire day to playing video games. Recently, it's been like
you mean your own choice of games or
yes,
any game?
Yeah, okay. My own choice of games.
There you go.
I don't have an assignment that I have to get through. I don't have like only an hour or two to play and then I have to go do something. I had just full like free reign of my weekend, aside from morning coffee plans on both days and then also UFC on Saturday night. Other than that, I just played video games all weekend. It was great. So I checked out some games that I've been meaning to check out. So the 3 that I like had been meaning to check out, just smaller titles: Far Changing Tides, with it, which is like a kind of pulled out 2D platformer, and it's almost like a like Limbo or Inside.
I played Limbo,
actually
I played
almost.
One or the other. Which one's the older of the two?
Limbo is the first one.
Is that the black and white one, or are they both black and white? Okay, yeah, I played Limbo.
And Inside, I think has color in it. It's just like muted colors.
Mm-hmm. I keep meaning to play that.
Both are very good. Go into Inside without knowing anything about that game.
You know what? I might try to make a point to play Inside before next episode. I think I'm going to try that because it's not very long, right?
No, you'll beat it in like 3 or 4 hours at most.
Okay, I'll see if I can squeeze that in.
Yeah, don't know anything about it aside from it's like a spiritual successor. I mean, it's a spiritual successor to Limbo. Mm-hmm. It controls much in the same way, but don't know anything about like the story or anything. Just kind of go into it mysteriously.
No spoilers.
Far Changing Tides gives me a similar vibe to those games. So if you like that, that's good. I'm playing another game called Olija.
Olija, okay.
Olija, and it's like a retro action platformer, and that's a lot of fun so far.
Nice.
I checked out a game called Infernax, which had been getting a little bit of buzz, and it's another like retro style action game. It almost is in the vein of Castlevania, but like maybe throw in some like hyper difficult stuff. But it didn't really stick with me, so I kind of moved on from that. Played it for like an hour, and I was like, I don't know about this. And then the one game that I lost most of my weekend to, Scott, MLB The Show 22.
Oh, you did, huh? What were you playing? What mode are you?
I decided I was going to get my bearings. It's been 2 years since I played an MLB game.
Okay.
I missed out on 20 and 21. I devoted like half of my life to 20 or to 19. So it's been a while since I've really devoted a lot of time to an MLB game. And I started with March to October, trying to get my Orioles.
I like
in the
March
playoffs.
to October.
March to October is super fun, where you're just basically, for people who don't know, you start off with a team, and it's like almost like a story based season that you play through.
Yeah, it's like season mode where you kind of
scenarios.
play certain moments of the season. Like you don't
So
play
it
full
simulates
games, you
the
play every
entire
game.
season. Yeah, so it simulates the entire season, and it puts you in pivotal moments. Like, all right, you're against a division rival, you're up by 1. We're putting you in the seventh inning, preserve the lead. And like, you can either like, you control both sides of the ball. So like you have a pitcher, like you're pitching and you're trying to make it so they're not scoring any more runs. Then you go to bat and you could extend the lead. And based on how you do in the situations they put you in, it gives you momentum. And then
Good or bad.
As the simulation goes on, your good or bad momentum will influence the results of the simulation. So like you'll see, like if you have fire, which is like good momentum, or you have ice, which is bad momentum, you'll see simulation going game by game. And every once in a while, that fire meter will come down and influence like, all right, you won this game. You probably would have otherwise lost if you didn't have that momentum under your belt. And you can get really bad momentum. And then other times it's like, here's a player who is like ready to break out and become a star on your team. You take control of that player over the course of the entire game. So like if it's a batter, like you're just playing his at bats and you're playing his opportunities in the field, or it's a pitcher and you control that pitcher for the entire time. And based on how you perform in that influences their attributes throughout the rest of the season. So it's like, all right, he had a breakout game and now he's a star on your team.
So let me ask you, how did the Baltimore Orioles do? Because I'm assuming that was where we
hit the halfway point in the season last night, right before I went to bed.
And non-baseball fans need to know that the Orioles are terrible.
The Orioles are by far the worst team in baseball. I don't know if there's going to be a team that has a worse record than them.
It's not very close either. I can tell you that as a sports guy.
I was looking up, even the MLB was throwing shade at them. I don't know if I brought this up last episode, but
I don't think you did.
The MLB's official Twitter account was throwing shade at the Orioles because they tweeted out projected win-loss records for every team. And the Orioles had the worst record that they projected. And then they put out the betting odds for teams to win the World Series. The Orioles were at plus 25,000. So if you put $100 down, you could win $25,000.
Please don't waste your $100 on the Baltimore
Do not.
Orioles.
There's no Cinderella story in here. There's just pumpkins.
No. It's just pumpkins. I like that.
Hey, their colors, orange and black. So it's Halloween colors already.
Yeah, and they are scary bad.
They are terrible. I don't know how an organization could be so bad for so long. And it even says that, like, because it's all story driven in March to October. I started out the season and it's like the Orioles may not have any hope this year. They've lost 100 games in 3 of their last 4 seasons. And I was like, oh my God, they've been that bad for the past 4 seasons where they've lost 100 games. For people who aren't baseball fans, there's only 162 games in a season. So they have lost 100 games, 100 out of 162 games at least in 3 of the last 4
baseball. Like the best teams win, like, 2 out of 3 games. The worst teams win 1 out of 3 games. There's usually, like, when it comes down to it, winning percentage wise, they're usually not crazy apart. But when you're losing 100 games, you're getting much in different territory, and it's a lot darker and drearier.
I'm a long-suffering fan. I grew up an Orioles fan in the 90s, so like we were good. We had
until Jeffrey Mayer went and stole everything from you, right?
Yeah, the Yankees. Trust me, my hatred of the Yankees is deep-seated.
I believe it. I'm not a Yankee fan, so you and I, we can get along.
You a Mets guy?
No, I'm a Florida Marlins fan. Well, okay, Miami Marlins now, but
okay. Well, I would have even taken you as a Mets fan just because Shea Stadium.
I never went to Shea. I've been to City a ton, but I've never went to Shea. I went to my
I
first
wish I
Met
could have gone to
game
Shea
the
Stadium.
year after it closed, the first year City was open.
Ah,
But you know what? Everyone tells me like you didn't miss anything.
yeah. Well, I just wanted to go because of my name.
Oh, duh, of course. I'm missing that, sir. Was that your uncle that was named after? Phineas Shea?
I would not be doing a podcast in a basement. I would have a professional studio if it was named after my uncle or family member. I would be in much better financial shape, I think, if it was named after one of my family members.
And for the record, it's also not named after Phineas Shea. I made that up. But I mean, there's certainly a Phineas Shea out there. You know it.
There has to be.
There has to be.
So that's enough about what I'm playing. What are you playing?
I finished off at least my New Game Plus playthrough of God of War. Again, I'm playing on story mode, so I was just kind of going through it to try and collect, more gear, get myself really powered up for when I go through my Give Me God of War hardest difficulty run on New Game Plus the second time, or I guess it'll be the third time, but second on that difficulty. So I did beat the Valkyries in that, which I'm pretty sure you played through, right? Mm-hmm. They are not easy. Even on the easiest difficulty, because you can't actually face Sigrun, who is the Valkyrie queen. So I don't think this is
they don't let you on the lower difficulty?
No, they let you, but you will never be on the same level as her. She's level 11. You can't get to level 11 in God of War. You can only get to like 10 3/4 or something, which I'm just about at. And that's not enough.
Which, by the way,
you're at 10, it doesn't matter. Like anywhere
10 3/4 is the exact age at which it stops being appropriate to say your age is like your year plus half or 3/4. Like, remember, like when you're a kid, you're like, you're only 10 years old. No, I'm 10 3/4. Like that's the 11 is the exact cutoff for when that stops being cute.
As we record this today on Monday, I am 36 5/6. You jerk. It's actually because I'm June 11th, sir. My birthday is when UFC 275 when they're in Singapore with that amazing card.
Yeah, that card looks stacked.
So yeah, June 11th. Save the date, everybody. Send me presents. I like PlayStation store money. I'm just kidding. I have my own money, but yeah, I finished that. I've been playing a little bit. You ever play Super Stardust?
A long time ago,
PlayStation. Yes. So I have it for the PS4 version. They kind of They updated it with better graphics and everything. So they call it Super Stardust Ultra. Been playing that for my kids because it's a fun game where they just want to see me like blast other spaceships and rocks and
very cool particle effects.
I love that game. That's like my go-to. Like every so often, I'm just gonna play it just to kind of kill some time a little bit. And now my kids are older, and when I say older, I mean they're 6 and 4, and they've been enjoying the heck out of me doing that with like spaceships and everything. So that's where I'm at. I'm
fun
still
arcade
kind of between things. Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you're kind of looking forward to? I'm not asking you for like work assignments, but just in general, is there something that like is ahead of you that you've actually got your eye on? Dude, just for fun.
I'm looking forward. I mean, there's plenty of stuff I'm looking forward to. Like, we want to talk retro stuff. We've talked about Shredder's Revenge, TMNT, yes. the upcoming retro brawler, also Cowabunga Collection. We talked about that on our second episode. There's also Sonic Origins, which is like an upgraded re-release of Sonic 1, 2, 3, Knuckles, and Sonic CD. That's all coming out at some point this year. I'd say closer on the horizon if you want to talk like something that's a little bit of a throwback, but also something new. Later this month, like 2 weeks from now, we are getting Nintendo Switch Sports. If you remember Wii Sports, it's a successor to that. And
I'm like very pumped for that one. I'm really pumped for that one. I want to play the bowling game again.
Yes, that was the best.
Can we bowl against each other? Like, I'm really excited. I want to bowl with you.
I'm pretty sure we can.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
I think we can bowl.
We are absolutely going to bowl together, sir.
I'm bringing up the release calendar here to see what else I'm thinking of in terms of like games coming out.
I used to be a damn good Wii bowler, by the way. I was really good. Yeah. I had my spin technique down and everything, which is totally against the way I actually bowl. I'm not a good bowler.
Oh, I don't spin the ball at all in real bowling, but in Wii bowling,
yeah,
I will spin the hell out of that ball.
Exactly. That's all it's about.
What about Mario Strikers Battle League? Do you know anything about that game?
Is that the soccer one?
Yeah, but like it looks really fun. Like it looks like they're doing all the right things to make it so like even if you're not the biggest soccer fan, it's going to be a blast.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait for the All Things Nintendo report on that one, I think.
We'll hit that. So August has a couple games I'm looking forward to. 2 Point Campus, which is like a simulation thing where there was a game called 2 Point Hospital.
2 Point Hospital, yeah, I'm familiar.
It's like a zany kind of like simulation thing, almost like SimCity, where it was like you build, instead of building your own city, though, you're building your own hospital and running your hospital. Now there's a one coming out called 2 Point Campus, and it's, as you might imagine, building a college campus. But like it has like all these like weird, like over the top courses that you can put on. Like you build the different buildings, you can like make different decisions for how to run your campus, and it's looking really fun. It just got delayed to August 9th, but it was originally supposed to come out next month, but they pushed it back. And then there's the Saints Row reboot that's coming out in August as well.
I never played the Saints Row games.
It's fun. I actually got to play this one before it was even announced.
I understand they started as a knockoff GTA, and then they went like completely zany off in their own direction, and they kind of became their own thing.
Yeah, and that was the smartest thing they did, because Saints Row 1 was like totally forgettable. Like, oh, they're just trying to be GTA. Saints Row 2 started forging its own identity a little bit, but Saints Row the third is the one where there's like, oh, we're just going to go for it. Like balls to the wall, humor, over the top action that you wouldn't even see in a GTA game. And then Saints Row 4 maybe took it a little bit too far, because it, instead of just being like kind of like an over the top action game where like with humor injected into it, it was so far like, it was like, and it starts off, you're the president of the world, and then aliens invade, destroy the planet, and then you're stuck in a simulation of Earth for the rest of the time that you're in the game. And it's like they just took it way too far for Saints Row 4. Even though it's fun, it's just like, this is a little too much for me. But yeah, those are the ones I'm most looking forward to on the near horizon. Like we just came out of one of the busiest periods of gaming in a while. Like,
so we're in a little bit of a down period, you think?
We have a little bit of a lag.
When I say down, I don't mean down in quality in terms of like major like AAA type releases.
Yeah, because think about it. For a while there, we had Pokemon Legends Arceus, we had Horizon Forbidden West, we had Elden Ring, all back to back to back. And thankfully, we have a little bit of time to catch up. Oh, Dying Light 2, all these other games that are coming out, MLB The Show, just major release after major release. And then plus you had some other stuff that mixed in the middle there, like Tunic, which is a game that a lot of people were super hyped about. And
had you played the first one, Nick? You were talking about that one.
That's right. Yeah, One Nick. No, I have not played that, but I did jump right into Tunic, and it is very fun. If you like old school Zelda, like the top down style, this is for you.
Okay. Yeah, I've never been a big top down Zelda guy. Like I didn't have the attachment like you did to that property. I don't know. I just never, and I did try. I actually tried going back to Zelda on Nintendo Switch.
Which one?
The online, Nintendo Switch Online, the original.
You got to go back to Link to the Past at this point, I think.
Okay.
On SNES.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. I have a NES Classic, or an SNES Classic, which sometimes I've been lately too dipping back in to play Donkey Kong Country for my kids. Treetop Town is kind of giving me issues right now, so that's where I'm stuck at. I don't know if anyone remembers.
It's not the minecart levels, at least.
No, actually, I don't mind the minecart levels. For whatever reason, this Treetop Town is just I'm not a fan.
Donkey Kong Country gets difficult.
When you have kind of like, you got to use those barrels, but you kind of almost sometimes are blindly like jumping into it. You have to slow down, but I don't love when you have to very much slow down in like a platformer. There should be flow, you know. That's why I think Donkey Kong Country 2 is the superior of the two, of the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy.
I'm blinded by nostalgia, but I'll always love the first Donkey Kong Country.
That's fine.
The most.
But
that's just because that was the game I played growing up.
Maybe I've talked about this on the show before, but when I was a kid, I'm an only child, and I used to take trips every summer to go to northern Michigan, way up in the UP. So it's cold up there, just like your country where you're at, Mr. Minnesota. It was a long trek, and I would bring a very small television, which we would hook up to the cigarette lighter, which is not a cigarette lighter anymore. I don't even know what they call it. Just a power outlet. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just a power outlet now.
At this point, they should probably just change it to just USB plugs.
Well, they do for a lot of places. A lot of cars just have a USB port.
Yeah, my car has them too, but I think they still have that port. Maybe they do. I don't know.
But I think it's probably a legacy thing, like kind of like how like, oh, you have this old stuff that you want to plug in still. Like here's the car adapter.
I get it. I mean, that makes sense. But at any rate, yeah, we used to bring the TV. I used to bring my Nintendo. And I was playing Donkey Kong Country across our country in, let's call it proto Switch. Taking my game on the go.
So Donkey Kong Country, the entire trilogy is on Nintendo Switch Online. So you can play it on that if you have an online subscription. Do you have I think I may have asked you this before. Do you have the expansion pack?
I don't have that online anymore right now, but I am going to get all of that because I want access to all the Mario Kart new race levels.
You could just buy the DLC if you wanted to have it.
But I actually do want, look, if I'm going to spend part of the money there, I might as well go the whole way and get the whole entire package. And be able to play some of those old games like you're talking about,
Yeah. So if you have like the base level subscription, which is I think $20 a year, you get NES and SNES games. And then if you have the expansion pack subscription, you get N64 and Sega Genesis. And then you also get certain games expansions included for free. So Animal Crossing's expansion and now Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's expansion are included in that. So that's $50 a year, I believe.
Is that on top of or in addition?
No, that's like just the upgraded membership. Like, Netflix, it's like, all right, you can pay like $12 a month or you can pay like $15 a month for like 4K or whatever.
So I can pay 20 a year or 50 a year, not 70 a year. Got it. I like that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I could do that. I can see.
But they've been adding
that's
a
on
new
the birthday
N64
list.
game. They've added a new N64 game every month since it launched last year. And then they've also added a bunch of Sega Genesis games along the way. So they just announced that Mario Golf is the next one. I don't know if you're a Mario Golf fan.
I actually played NES Open all the way back. The very early version of, I guess, I used to call it Mario Golf, but it wasn't Mario Golf at that point.
I think the first one was Game Boy Color. I think that was the first official Mario.
Is that
Golf.
Okay? Yeah, but
although it might have been N64.
I think NES Open may have predated that one, but it was called NES Open. Yeah, so I used to play that. That was actually we gave that to my dad for his birthday, and he didn't play it that much because he never really got into the Nintendo. We kind of tried, and it just didn't work. It's not his thing. He'd rather actually play golf, and that's fine. But he's a fantastic golfer, my father, by the way. I will always brag about my dad's golfing ability.
Oh, really?
He's got 2 holes in one. He is like, I don't know, he's like a 6 handicap or something. He's really good.
Wow.
That's
impressive.
I don't care.
I've gone golfing once in my life, and I did better than I think that I would, because I was in late middle school, early high school. So I was a kid still, and I'd never golfed before aside from putt-putt and the driving range. But I remember I did better than my dad, because I went with my dad and my uncle, and I did better than they thought I was going to do. But it was still I don't know if I need to do this again.
Yeah.
I'd like to go again as an adult.
So, but in short, I didn't really play a lot of Mario Golf, especially on the N64. Is that representative of the best of Mario Golf? I don't know.
I think a lot of people point towards the Game Boy Color one just because there's a career mode in that a story mode that's an RPG style thing. And they tried that with Mario Golf Super Rush, which is the Switch version that just came out last year.
Right.
Last year. And that tried to do a similar thing with its story mode. People were super excited about it. And I remember I reviewed it for us and I was like, the story mode kind of sucks. And I was not a fan of the story mode. The RPG elements were kind of underwhelming, but the golfing itself and the different iterations and versions of golf that they have in that, there's a Super Rush mode and there's different ways to play golf in that are just very arcadey. Those are a lot of fun. Those are maybe the best the series has ever been, but don't if you're going to buy it for just the golfing, do that, but do not buy it for the story mode. That's my recommendation on Mario Golf Super Rush. But Mario Golf on the N64 was a very good version of that game. And, it's going to be more about nostalgia at this point because there's a better version of it on Switch already.
Well said, my friend. I will keep that in mind if I do get that subscription. But, I think we're pretty much at the end of the road for this episode, everybody. Thanks for tuning in on our new day on Tuesday. If you like what you heard,
it feels good. It feels good.
Yeah, I like it too. I think there's good energy here. So come back next Tuesday. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to this show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you found us. It helps us grow. And while you're at it, would you kindly follow our social handles at Brian Pichet and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you all so much for listening. And if you want to reach us with questions, feedbacks, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you're hyped about, hit us up at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games, and we will talk to you next week.